We are here with one of our favorite sales guys from Vintage King, Jeff. Thanks for being here. And then we have a bunch of awesome engineers from Classick Studios. Thanks everyone for being here. And I guess we can kick it off with Chris, the owner of Classick Studios, and he's going to kind of give us a little rundown of what the history is behind the studio and the kind of work they do there.
Yeah, it's a long story, but yeah, no, thanks for having us for sure. So I'm gonna change my background as like you could kind of see the journey of the studio. So Classick Studios basically started in 2005 in my bedroom. Bought a Behringer B1 microphone, M-Box 2, had the M audio monitors, and Pro Tools and Fruity Loops. And at the time, I was just like really heavy on the production side of everything. And I would use that to have people come book time. So I would just give them free beats if they just book studio time with me. Promoted on Facebook at the time, MySpace, dropped off flyers, went to local clothing boutiques like Leaders here in Chicago and Juggernaut. Went to other high schools, beat battles, open mics. So if I wasn't at the studio, I was always out just trying to like spread Classick Studios and like my work. As time progressed and through word of mouth, I ended up getting like a lot of more engineer work. But then in 2005, like my mom passed away from breast cancer. So music actually helped me out during those times. And yeah, it was just really tough. And my dad came up to me in the top of 2006 and he gave me like a life insurance check that he always just told me that, always put purpose behind money. And the first thing that I did was I invested in the first studio in the basement, and I bought a pair of KRKs, an iMac, AKG 414, a Digi 003 rack, a Bluebird mic, Germanium preamp. I had my uncle actually build out a whole booth for me too as well. And that's why like whenever you come to our studio now, like you always see like a picture of my mom because she's actually the person who invested in the studio. The artist that came down to my house at Kilpatrick, I'll show you the basement. This is the basement. That's the booth right over there. We had Dave Koresh, who was like a Chicago legend back in the day. He brought down Vic Mensa. Rocky Fresh was recording all his stuff. Kids in the Hall. J.U. Ice, who was like a old school hip hop head back in the day. Smino as a producer too started at my house. But I always just thought that like, as an engineer / producer, it's just important to be like your own A&R and really build your ear to find talent because, people in this industry will hire you for your taste and, to also just build with producers because, producers always have so many artists to work with. So what I did was I actually casted a wide net and narrowed it down to the people that I really wanted to work with. At the time, people started hitting me up to intern. I had Jeff Jackson, who actually set the bar for internship work. He would, come down. He lived like 40, 50 minutes away, but he would drive every day to help me out in my basement. And now he's like killing it in LA. Just did Brent Fies' project. His resume is big, so you can just go online and just like look that up. And after a while, there was just too many people coming to my house. My studio was actually like under my dad's bedroom, and my dad was just fed up at that point. And so we moved the studio into a house on Bernice. 2009, rented it out. My roommates were producers. We had engineers, photographers, and just anyone in media. Just stayed around a lot of like-minded people who basically just kept me on my toes. Hired 2 engineers, hired Jeff Jackson, and hired Headache, who are 2 of my good friends. And then Elton Chung was one of the interns who started at the Bernice house. Brian Schwaller, who's also on this Zoom call. What's up, Brian? Darwin also. What's up, Darwin? Told the team that, and myself, that we would move once the calendar was overbooked. Got to a point where I couldn't even like book in my own studio. So in August 2012, we moved into our current space on Chicago Avenue. 2 big rooms, got a production room, which is currently rented out by Elton, The gear list grew. You can go on our website to check it out. Our quality of work grew immensely. Our clientele base grew. We worked with Chance, King Louis, Jeremiah, everyone in Chicago, No Name, Saba, Alicia Caro too, Corinne Bailey Ray, Tyler Creator, and many more that you could check that out on our website too as well. Cole Krugel interned there and now is like one of the senior engineers. What's up, Cole? And we continue to help artists on any level to this day. So that's the whole story of Classick Studios in a nutshell. Oh, I didn't even change the pictures. My fault.
Okay, we can back up.
So this is the Bernice house.
Yeah.
We painted that Michael Jackson painting. Then we moved into Chicago Ave, this is the blue room, and then it's the red room. I'll just stay in the red room.
Cool. Well, do you want to introduce what engineers we have with us today?
Yep. So we got Cole Krugel, because I see you first. Cole, like I said, started at Chicago Avenue. You want to talk about some of the work that you've done, and just like you maybe share that one story you had, interning.
Oh, okay. So it's a crazy intern story. Like at the time I was in my last semester of audio school or whatever, and I was just, coming to the studio to intern, whenever I was free. And I came in like super late at night one night. And so the first thing you do as an intern is pretty much mop the floor. And something had made me mad at school that day. And so it was kind of like mopping with a firm grip. And the mop ended up breaking and going through my arm. I don't know if you could see, but I have like a scar right here. Like all my skin was missing, the bone, all that in the hospital. And I ended up like coming back later that night. And like, I remember spending the night.
I picked you up.
Yeah, Darwin picked me up. I remember staying the night at the studio that night still after I got back from the hospital. And like, Chris came in the morning. He's like, dude, what are you doing here still? Go home.
Yeah, at that point, I just knew that Cole was like, all right, he's built for this. There's
That was my point too.
Yeah, you could tell that certain people are built for this game. The endurance and the determination that they have. Like another story is like Darwin, of course. That's another story. If you want to share that with the desk.
Yeah. So back when we were at the Bernice crib, Chris had ordered this new desk for the Control 24, and I just remember having to look up many desks that were sale online and trying to find the best deal. But other than that, when the desk finally came, it came in this box, and the box was just completely torn up, like pieces hanging out of the box and like foaming peanuts like everywhere. Needless to say, like they did not have instructions at all. So me and another intern who moved, his name was Wes, me and Wes put it together just by looking at pictures online of this desk. So you're like, all right, this part goes here. That doesn't look right. So it's just a whole bunch of trial and error. And once we put the desk together, we got this new place on Chicago Ave. So we had that at that time, Wes had not been with us. So since I was the only one who put the desk together at that time, I had to take it all apart and then move it into the new spot, build that desk up again. It was just, let me just say that desk was like my baby. I had like attachment to that. Like I knew every nook and cranny of that thing.
Yeah, but then like a week, or I think like probably a week after that, I hired you as an engineer, right? It was like,
yeah.
Because I just knew that you had it. Brian too, like Brian started at Bernice, and then where'd you go again, Brian? You went back home, or?
No, I started working in live sound, like doing like stagehand stuff just to make my ends meet.
Yeah.
And then I ended up coming back when you guys moved into the Chicago Ave.
Yep, and then just hired you off the bat, right?
Yeah, 3 months of
OG.
interning, just finished a credit for Columbia, and then right into engineering.
Also, all of them have a lot of great like resumes behind them. Everyone, Brian just did Raven's song that was just on Insecure. Darwin did Alessia Carr's project. You know what I mean? Like, we all have Cole. Like, what other projects are you working on right now?
The most recent project that I'm probably most proud of is MF and Mello's project from Pivot Gang. Really enjoy working on that one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So this is the gang. There's a lot more of us too.
Cool. I'm glad
Yeah, we
got
roll deep.
some of you today.
Yeah, so Chris, first, I've been a part of the ride with Chris for a couple of years now. I've been fortunate to see the Chicago Ave room before they made a couple of upgrades, and as they've been doing it. And Chris, I guess, you know, you mentioned in each one of your rooms the speakers, the mic, and the interface you started with, and I've always had the mindset that, you know, monitors are probably, if not the most important, one of the most important pieces to the chain, especially from a mix and production standpoint. So, you know, I know you guys recently made an upgrade or a change on your monitors and opted for some ADAM speakers. So just kind of wanted to pick your brain on how you guys went about that, what you guys were looking for, and why the two models you guys picked out sort of seemed like the right fit for you guys.
Yeah, for sure. So at the time we had the Yamaha HS8s, and I think it was just that time to kind of, you know, graduate from those. And at first we tried out a pair of ADAM Audios, not to knock them, of course, you know, we just trying to see what our taste is and what actually sounds better in our rooms. Like you said, like monitors are like your ears. Like if you're not properly hearing everything, it's what's the point of like all the other gear that you have, you know, your microphones and your preamps and everything else coming in, if you're not hearing it properly. So we had the ADAM Audios come down. It was the BM15s, and I think we had the which one? The L, what was it?
BM15s and the BM5A.
Yeah, and then we tried. Yeah, and then we tried those for like a week, right, guys? Two to 3 weeks, just to see how it felt. And I think after a while, they just started, in my opinion, they started to feel a little bit sterile or just too crispy on the high end. And I don't know, like my ears started to get a little fatigued. Realized I actually had somebody come down to the studio. His name was, I don't know if he still works there. Adam from, not Adam, is it Adam?
Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, Adam, but it's not the Adam.
It's not the Adam.
Audio, you can't forget it.
He came down and he told me that he had a pair of S3Hs that I could borrow for a week or two, and I actually, you know, put him up to it. I asked if we could do that, and we tried it out. We first put it in the blue room. We hated it, right, guys? Like,
yeah, too much.
It was just the monitors were just outputting too much inside that small room. And then once we moved it over to the red room, it just sounded a lot more bigger. I think that room kind of occupied that space better. And yeah, I honestly fell in love with them instantly. I don't know how you guys felt about it. If you guys want to share your stories about the S3Hs.
Well, I think they sound like very good at a low level when you're mixing. You hear the whole spectrum even at a very low level, which I like about them. And then even when you crank them, they tend not to fatigue your ears. That's why I like them, because everybody wants to listen to everything loud in the studio anyways for extended periods of time. And I come away not having as much ear fatigue.
Yeah, same here. Like Cole and Chris said, like the ear fatigue was like super like spot on. Like I was listening to I had like a 10-hour session, and you know, they, like Cole said, they like it loud. And by the time like I was driving home with music, like usually after those 10-hour sessions, you don't like to listen to anything anymore. But yeah, my ears didn't feel as like ringing in my ears. So I thought that was really good.
True. I like the stereo field a lot. I felt like when I was using reverbs and echoes, I could actually like hear like the dimensions more, and just like hear, like I could just see it in front of me more than anything, more than any other speaker that I've actually have listened to so far.
Right. And it like they were saying, you can crank it really loud and it doesn't really distort that much. Usually like when I'm trying to find certain frequencies and I need to turn it up, I'll just hear more distortion. But with the S3Hs, like it's, you know, super clear, so I know what frequencies I'm actually trying to look for.
Awesome. So for everyone watching online, I think what a key takeaway I got, it's funny, Chris, you mentioned you guys put it in the blue room first, and they just were not the right speakers for the room. So I think, for those of us joining us, trying to figure out the right gear for the home studio, make sure you listen in your room. I assume all of you would agree with that. What works in one room may not always work in the other room. So just make sure you're taking your room size into account and all that sort of stuff when you're looking for monitors. And speaking of which, for you guys that have clients that are used to coming to the studio, which is clearly not happening right now, how are you guys helping them? Are you helping them figure out monitoring at home, headphones, interfaces? What sort of guidance have you guys been given to your extended family that's not with you right now?
On my end, I could speak on that. I put out like a post just letting clients know, or all my clients know, that I could consult, let them know like how to optimize your recordings at home, where to record in your house. So sometimes like what I'll do is I'll actually FaceTime with them, and then I don't know, for some reason I'll just hear how they sound in that room through the microphone and let them know like, you shouldn't record in that room. I think you should put it over here, or don't record in the closet. Please don't. Like, I think that's like the worst idea of all time, to record in a small. I did it in the beginning, but just don't do it. I'd rather you record in a space that, like, that's a little bit more open, but just find a place that has a lot of stuff so that there's things that are causing the reflections to be scattered instead of it just being, concentrated on one node. Like, it'll just sound like a constant box. But what I would do is just put like curtains up if you can, just like what Brian, and if you could see Brian's room, and he just has like a lot of curtains up. It really helps with the room sound. But I was doing that. I was telling people like what to buy gear wise, asking them like what their budgets are. I could tell them like what the cheaper end is, and what if they have a little bit more, I'll give them that price. Or if they want like the long run, I'll just give them like, here, this is what you need, and you're good for the rest of your life.
I don't know if any of the other guys want to chime in on that, if you guys been helping any of your clients out, or
Oh yeah, I've just been taking FaceTimes as well, and then just kind of getting people set up with just like an interface. Just like I've been suggesting the new SSL interface. I've heard really good things about that. And then just telling people what websites to go to, like Vintage King. That's my go-to every time. Like, because I don't know, just the way they help me is just better than anybody else. And then just kind of just people microphone choices, and just to stay in the green while recording. Don't send me anything clipping.
So on that tip, I mean, how are you guys talk us through your setups at home? How's the adjustment working from home? I know you guys have some, two great rooms at the Chicago Avenue location. How's the adjustment working from home? Are you guys loving it? I know, Chris, you got a new one at home. You spending more time with the little one, or are you guys staying creative? What's the rig at home for you guys?
I'll show you guys my room. Hold on.
Hey, you're not at the red room?
Nah. I am in my baby room. I'm working inside my baby's room, but he doesn't sleep in here yet. He's not old enough. But I got these and the Apollo Twin, and I got an actual laptop that I just use to record at the crib, or a mix at the crib. And yeah, that's my setup. Not too crazy.
Yeah, working from home and having the studio not being accessible to us, like, usually that's where most of my work comes from, because my clients don't have the right tools at home. So, just setting up my room, I just bought, we touched up on knowing your room, and it took me several trials of knowing where to put this desk placement in this room, because it's quite small. But just testing out the acoustics and making sure I got the right monitors to fit, having all the experience and trials and errors at Classick, really helped me get that right groove and trying to train my ears and listen to what is wrong versus what sounds better.
We have a question from Pablo that says, do you guys have home studio setups? Which obviously we're going over that. And he said, how have you decided what is good equipment to acquire? So has anyone bought anything new, or is there anything that you wish you had in your home studio that you didn't before this quarantine started?
I just bought SSL Fusion from Vintage King, which I've been using way too much. But that's my home setup right there. Got the clarity over here, the TC Electronic, Apollo Firewire, and then ADAM Audio BM5As, I think. And then I don't know. The newest thing that I bought is the SSL Fusion, and I would highly suggest it for mixing, mastering. Oh no! I've had fun.
We lost Brian.
Brian fell.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with this piece of gear. I will say that.
We have another question that says, what are the skills that will give you the most value in the studio?
Ooh, I like to touch up on that. I think the most skills you can have, like anybody, I feel like anybody can like really learn, like if they wanted to take the time to sit down and learn engineering and learn about all these different like compression, EQ, what this does, what that does. But what's really underrated and how to get quality music is to reciprocate with the people you're working with and really just try to come with a collaborative idea rather than, you know, clashing all the time. And sometimes like, you know, projects or some connections don't work. Like there's not a real good reciprocation between those two. And I've had that a lot in my career, just like biting my tongue, like, oh, I need to work with them because I need the money. But, you know, I'm learning more that, you know, that's not what is beneficial for me or the artist. So really just like having that strong connection and, you know, vibing off each other really makes good music.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say patience too. Just patience with music, because it's a long process, or it could be a short process, either one. And just at the end of the day, you're an engineer. This is their music, and you're trying to help them. So, like, if your feelings kind of like go against what the artist is feeling, just kind of go with the artist because it's their music.
And to piggyback off of what Brian said, going off of somebody else's feeling, there's been times in the studio where I'm like, they've asked me to do something mix wise and I might not agree with it because in my head, it might not technically be right, but then I go ahead and do it anyways. And I hear it for myself and I'm like, wow, that actually sounds pretty cool. It stands out in a unique way. So yeah, kind of always go off feeling. You can be as technical as you want with mixing, but at the end of the day, sometimes I learn like the more I know about technical skills, the more I stray away from just, you know, making creative decisions that come off of feeling.
Yeah. And just to end it off, emotional intelligence is very important. I think that's a big skill that I feel like a lot of people don't really like pay attention to. Like everyone's always trying to learn how, of course you're going, and with time, you're going to get better with anything that you do. You know, like if I want to be a better mixing engineer, I'll spend every day like looking up YouTube clips, just everything I'll do every day, just surround myself with it. But emotional intelligence is also just as important. You know, like your know-how is great. That will help you get you where you need to be. But the vibe too is like very, very important as well. I think that might be the bigger factor than a lot of things, right, guys?
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. This one might be a good answer for Jeff. Subwoofers from home studios, ? Please share your views on that.
I think like almost everything audio, everything is subjective here. You know, if you're confined to a smaller room and you have smaller speakers and you just don't have the low end extension that you're looking to have, definitely add a sub. Like I said, I think getting it in your room and pairing it up with your speakers is key to understanding how everything's gonna react in your room and play in your room. So, you know, I don't think there's a yes or no. I think it's, you know, like everyone has said here, it'll depend on you, you know, the engineer. It'll depend on the room, depend on the speakers you have. You know, we're happy to talk through that with you guys. Feel free to call me or anyone at VK. We love talking shop about this sort of stuff. So that's my personal outlook. You know, I've had some guys that were super against subwoofers. They put one in, and you know, they can't imagine life without one now. So you know.
We have another question from Jonathan that says, I need new monitors and don't know which ones to choose. Any suggestions?
There are a ton out there. I think, again, knowing the room size, even the genre of music you primarily are working on, and the budget will be a good starting point. You know, there's plenty of great brands out there that all offer great monitors. You know, I think, again, subjective thing, make sure wherever you buy them, hopefully from Vintage King, they have a return policy so you can check them out in your studio. But I'm happy to talk through that with you, Jonathan.
Cool. Another question might be good for one of the engineers. Do you guys use any ear training sites?
I used the app for a while. I think it was called PeerTune or some. I forgot what it was called, but it would like you just guess the frequencies, and then I just kind of did that every day for probably around 2 weeks or so until I stopped just using it. Probably should go back to it, to be honest.
Awesome. Sam said, Darwin mentioned that it's harder working from home because the studio offers more resources. Plugin wise, do you all have less to work with from home, or do you pass plugins along to each other?
Oh, yeah, I guess it is Classic actually has more plugins than I do, but you know, I try to work my way around it, you know, based off what I've learned through Classic and the other engineers. Like Classic always tells me, like, you know, you can always make a good mix. Like, you just need to know how to use it well, and I firmly believe that till the day I die. Like, you know, everybody makes something out of nothing, and you know, it's just really about the experience and just knowing what's right and wrong and when to use different stuff in different situations.
Awesome. George Hadley asked, do you have some DIY booth for vocals, instruments? Do you have a specific room that has that sound, or you just use reflection filters / panels? Like I see Darwin has some in his room. So what are you guys using for your DIY recording right now?
I can show you mine because mine's pretty, you know, right here. But yeah, I did buy a lot of acoustic panels, just to, because I got really high ceilings. I also put clouds, if you can see above here, just to like really just keep all the sound where my mixing position is. But you know, if you get your room to a nice dead sound, or as close as dead as you can get it, you know, just a reflection for your mic, so it doesn't reflect back anything from the rear, is pretty yeah, I've gotten some decent recordings out of using just reflection.
Nice. Yeah, it's looking good.
Thank you.
Thoughts on mixing and mastering on headphones? I'm sure maybe a lot of people are moving to that right now as working from their small spaces.
I actually do a lot of mixing and mastering in headphones. I've recently kind of gotten away from it though, just because of the low end response is hard to gauge. You just really need to get a pair of headphones that you trust and know what they're doing. For mixing in headphones, I would recommend open back headphones so that the low end doesn't get trapped inside your headphones, allowing you to have a little more accurate gauge of what you're hearing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I usually DS with headphones, but that's about it for me.
Mike asked, would you please discuss your approach to mixing a song that you are not the engineer on? Do you like hearing the rough, or do you prefer to just pull a vibe from what you are hearing?
Rough.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah.
Demo white is real.
Demo white is
Oh,
real.
yeah.
It is real. So
Awesome.
look off the rough and then go from there.
Nice. think that is about all the questions so far. We can keep answering them in the comments throughout the day, but I don't know. Does anyone have anything else to add?
I'll just on the mixing and headphones versus speakers, and I think the engineers all agree with me. Just make sure you have a reference you're always going back to, so you know what you're mixing to or mastering to.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I believe that's what we did when we were going through the whole choosing the monitors at Classic, and you know, everybody just listening to something that they're a mix that they're really familiar with and how it's supposed to sound and how it's supposed to feel. And if those speakers emulate that well, then you know, we went with our gut, and that was the ADAM Audio.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today. We have Vintage King and Classick Studios websites posted in the comments section, so check them out. We will also post the handles to all the engineers today, so you can follow them, check out their work. I'm sure they'll be posting more things about working from home.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having us.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you guys.
You have a good afternoon.